Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasant task to present to you for induction Harold Chuck Lindsay. The guy who sits beside for supper here is Ron Arntz, and he's broadcast the Gold Eyes games for 26 years, and he said he's never heard of the guy before. So I've got a little bit of a tall job here. He's in the pre-1950 category, and Chuck got his name for doing that very thing, chucking. But he was unique that he pitched both baseball and fastball at a very high level. This is a big event for the family. Chuck's passed away a few years ago, but there's a dozen of his family here from all over Canada. 4 of them came from Toronto, and you'll meet his daughter here in a moment. She's up here. His nephew is here from Saskatoon. He did a lot of work. A war veteran, he spent quite a few years in Shediac, New Brunswick, where the media down there voted him the most outstanding pitcher in the Maritimes in both fastball and baseball. In the golden years of baseball, and that's just after the war, and you say, why do you say that? Well, that's the time when every community, even Calder, had a good ball team, and they often had a sports day. And Chuck Lindsay did a lot of pitching there, quite often in the final game. He pitched quite a bit after the war with Hamyota, Weston, and Bellevue, where he was a grain buyer. His favorite catcher was a guy called Pick Caldwell. And Pick's son Bob is here, and I think the family hope to meet you later on. He had a famous saying when Chuck was pitching is, "Give me that P, give me that P," and Chuck would wind up and he had a lot of strikeouts. Against Satchel Paige, after the war, the color barrier was broken, and Satchel Paige and his touring teams came through, and they played a game of pickups, all-stars, I guess, in western Manitoba, and the guy chosen to pitch against them was Chuck Lindsay. To get material in the 40s was not easy, but Daryl, his nephew, dug one up here from the Brandon Sun. They had one of the first leagues out there in the late 40s was the Brandon Grays, Verdon, and Hamyota. And Chuck pitched against the Grays and beat them 8-3, struck out 10, and issued a 6-hitter. Now, the Brandon Grays, most of you have heard of them. A couple of years later, they were the best team in Western Canada's tournament. It featured guys like Jerry McKay when he was a teenager, and Ian Lowe. Reading in the Hamyota history book as recently as a couple of days ago, I read where, and this is a quote from Chuck Lindsay, "We had a good fastball team. In the late 30s, money was scarce. We couldn't afford to have baseball, so we were never defeated in 4 years. Catching was, and some of you way back will recall him, Johnny Mansell, and playing third base was Pick Caldwell and Lauren Caldwell first, and pitching all day, every day was Chuck Lindsay. In the Air Force, he pitched the Calgary Bombers to the Alberta champions in '41. He was an excellent hockey player and a boxer, and I happened to attend his funeral in Hamyota, and the eulogy was given by a George Jago from wrestling, a very prominent guy there. And his words were, "Chuck was a great athlete and an even greater human being. He was known for his sense of humor, great storyteller, and financial generosity. During and following his pitching career, he was always Chuck, even though his great name was Harold." This induction is a long time overcoming, and I'm going to ask his daughter, Lynda from Toronto, is here on the stage, and also his nephew from Saskatoon, and the rest of the family is down here. If you would just step up and get a picture taken.
like to say thank you on behalf of my dad. This really would have meant a great deal to him. Next to my mother, baseball was the love of his life, and I've never really been sure which came first. As Dad said, he pitched both baseball and softball. He loved to play. And apparently it wasn't unusual for him to pitch 4 games in a weekend. He thought the pitchers these days were kind of hammy. And he told me late in his life, because he really didn't talk about himself very much. He said he had a really good life, and he had only one regret. And I said, well, what's that, Dad? And he said, well, when he was pitching for the Air Force during the war, he was scouted by the Brooklyn Dodgers, and he was invited to take his leave trying out for them. But when his leave came around, his dad wrote him that his mother was really ill. And he said, in case you get sent overseas trip, you should come home and see your mother. So, good son that he was, instead of trying out for the Dodgers, he went home to Henrietta. And he said, you know, the regret is not that I never got to play in the majors. He said, the regret is I really would like to have known whether I was good enough to make the cut. And I kind of think he would have been. I'd like to think he would have. It was an irony that it was the Dodgers because he was a lifelong Yankees fan. When he was very close to the end of his life, he was, of course, watching the ball game when he collapsed. And my mom and I called an ambulance and we got him to the hospital. And he was a very polite man, and he politely answered all the doctor's questions. Do you know where you are, Chuck? Do you know what happened? Do you know what day it is? All that. He turned to me and with not a little impatience. He said, look, it was the bottom of the ninth in a tie game with the bases loaded, 2 outs, and the Yankees up. What happened? So, on behalf of my dad, no one ever loved baseball more. Thank you. And I would like to thank my cousin Daryl, who was really instrumental in getting enough data together to make this happen tonight.
Well, thank you, Baldwin. Thank you, Lynda. What you're saying is a fellow who's very delighted to be here. Because I had an idyllic childhood. Because I had an uncle who, when I was about age 7 or 8, took me under his wing. And if any of you had known Chuck, his arms were about that size. So when I say he took me under his wing, he really did. The very first game I ever saw was a game of the Brandon Grays. Jerry Hay was on the team. Ian Lowe, who was a friend of Chuck's, was managing. And my favorite player, as Jerry knows, was Rafe Cabrera, a terrific Cuban baseball player. Well, over the next 4 years, Chuck and I traveled around the western Manitoba. He knew which towns were having tournaments, and he knew which nephew would love to sit through 5 or 6 games on the weekend. And we talked baseball a lot. I learned a lot, but the key thing I became was a fan like Chuck, who was passionate about baseball, but he really respected the game. And that was what he was trying to instill in me, was respect for the game, as well as the passion for it. Gladwin has mentioned about Chuck's pitching ability. He was primarily fastball, good control. When Pitt Caldwell had caught him, Pitt would say, well, what signals should we use, Chuck? Chuck's response, tell me if you want it high, inside or outside, low, inside or outside. And he'd throw a fastball and hit the corners. He was really known for his ability to pick the corners. Well, as I mentioned, we traveled around the province a lot together. And there was one thing that Chuck couldn't do. or couldn't hit, he could hit the corners, but one thing he couldn't hit was a note. He sang Blueberry Hill from Neepawa to Swan River to Binscar, back to Hamilton. The words changed. But he never stumbled on a note once, I think. But he was a perfect uncle, and I always really did appreciate it. If I might just take a separate moment to thank Morris and the Hall of Fame. If you look at Chuck's picture in the hall, you'll notice that he has his Air Force uniform on. I thought it's so appropriate to recognize a veteran today when we just finished the Memorial Cup in Halifax, a town that Chuck knew very well. And our American neighbors just finished Memorial Weekend, where we think of our veterans, and what a great night to think of Chuck. Thank you.